to class today. What we're making are cookies. We're making 2 types of cookies today. I'm doing 2 types to show you the process, and they're really important doing the process of these cookies. All cookies across the board are going to be done the same way. We take our fat, which in this case is going to be butter. It could be margarine, it could be oil. We're going to add the sugar to it. Well, that's the process we always start with. We cream that a little bit, and we're going to add any liquids to it. So we're going to add to this one, we're going to add egg yolk, or actually whole eggs. We're going to add some vanilla, and there's probably something else, but we'll get to that when I get there, okay? So the way we'll start, really quick, one simple health department tip for you when you're in a kitchen. When you're drinking out of a cup, always have a cup that has a lid and a straw. You don't want a cup with no lid. You might touch the rim of it. You're going to be spreading germs, and always keep it away from a tabletop where it might get knocked over. I always keep mine underneath there, okay? That's one thing the health department always looks for. You'll get marked down if they see it, a lid on the table, okay? It's our health department update for the day. So all these mixers, they're all kind of different. These ones you'll see it has a little nib in the back, and that goes towards the back. You're going to put it on there. Just make sure it clicks in. Your paddle is going to, there's a little extension down there. You put it on, you turn it, and it drops into place. Just make sure it's all there, and we're ready to go. So first thing we're going to do on these earthquake cookies is we need to melt some butter, and we need to melt some chocolate together. So how we do that, we put it into what we call a bain-marie or a water bath, okay? A bain-marie is a French term for water bath. The bain means water, marie means Marie, I guess. I don't get that one, but okay. So we're going to do a 1/4 cup of butter. So this is 2 cups here. So a 1/4 cup. How many cuts would we get out of this? We'd get 8. So a 1/4 cup would be right there. And I'll take it out of the paper, and on the, usually they have these little marks on here so you can see how much each one is, okay? Next thing we're going to do 2 ounces of chocolate, which translates to a 1/4 cup. I'm going to add a little extra. We like to make these very chocolatey. One thing with this, in the recipe it calls for unsweetened chocolate. What I'm doing, unsweetened chocolate's not always available in stores, and what I like to do is to, I use chocolate chip because I always have chocolate chips at the house, unless my daughters have eaten them all. But in this case we have them. We're just going to add a little less sugar once we do our process of mixing all the ingredients, okay? So I have here our bain-marie. It's just a water bath. One thing you really want to make sure you do, you want to make sure the whole bowl fits in there, okay? And what that does is steam is a really efficient form of heat, so it's going to go up around every part of the bowl, okay? You don't want the water touching the bottom of the bowl because that changes the temperature of how you're melting this, okay? For this amount, it doesn't make that big a deal, but if you're doing larger amounts, you really just want to use steam, okay? So I've got this going. It was already warm. I'm just going to set it on there. And you don't want to leave it on there forever. The chocolate, if you cook the chocolate too long, it's going to get grainy, and it's just going to get a weird consistency to it. So just cook it till it's kind of melted. Often I pull it off when the butters, you can still see little chunks of butter, but it will melt when I stir it up, okay? So we got that on there. And so next thing we're going to do is we're going to start getting our things ready to add the chocolate to. So we're going to add sugar, and like I said, we're going to a little less sugar than what the recipe calls for. Recipe calls for a cup. I'm just going to do 3/4 of a cup, okay? I'm also of the, this is a cup. If you look at the cup, you can tell. 1/4 would be down here, half, 3/4. If I have to get 2 cups to measure this, it's just too much work for me, okay? So just do one, 3/4 cup. We're going to pull this up, make sure it's stirring. Perfect. That's ready to go. So now we can get our other liquid ingredients together to pour in there after the chocolate's been added. So we're going to add some eggs. We're going to have 2 eggs. And what we want to do with the eggs, we want to crack them into another container. You don't want to crack the eggs like that into there. You risk having some eggshell fall in there. You have to reach in there, pull them out. This way, oh, look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at that, I made the mistake already. If that would have happened, that would have, I would have had to stop my mixer, pull everything out. So we'll start with another one. That one, I'll make an omelet for lunch, so don't worry. It's not going to be wasted. And we do 2 eggs, get these all ready. And then the only other liquid ingredient that's going in here is vanilla. So we're going 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I have my teaspoon measure here. I'm just going to mix those 2 together. And so once we add the chocolate to the sugar and we mix it in, then we're going to be able to add the eggs. The one thing we want to be careful with is we don't want to add the eggs while the chocolate's really hot still. Because what will happen, parts of the eggs will cook, and so you get little like specks of like cooked egg white and little specks of cooked egg yolk, okay? So we want to stay away from that. Okay, this is probably just about perfect. Yes, really nice. So what I have now is I have my chocolates melted, my butter's still melting. Excuse me, it's still not all the way done, but it's enough that I'm just going to stir it a little bit, and it's going to be ready to put into with my sugar. All right, look at that, really nice. Good job, chef. Thanks, chef. I'm always complimenting myself. It's always important to compliment yourself, because I know the cameraman never does. Okay, in goes the chocolate. Make sure that you're getting it all, scrape it all out. Don't leave much in there unless you want to lick a really dirty bowl. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on my mixer. We'll let it go for a little bit. Then we'll stop it. We'll scrape down the sides and make sure all the sugar's mixed in, and then we can get the then we'll add the eggs. And what this does, while it's mixing right now, it's also releasing some of the heat, and so it's going to make it so we're all ready to add the egg yolks. So while that's going, I'm going to really quickly get all of the dry ingredients together. The dry ingredients, we're starting with a cup of flour. And the way we do the flour, we get a nice big cup full, and then across the top I just pull that knife, and that gives us one even cup. And then what I'm going to do is I have a wire screen, or what we call a sieve, and I'm going to put that flour in there, but I'm not going to shake it yet. I'm going to get all of my dry ingredients together, and then I'll shake it. And what that does, we get out any impurities. If something like an eggshell falls in there, that will get the eggshell out, or like a little stone or something. But it also will mix everything really well too, okay? So I've got the flour there. We got baking soda, which it calls for 1 teaspoon of baking powder, baking powder. So there we go, same kind of thing. I just drag my finger across the top. And then it calls for salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So that goes in there. And now I shake it. And so now you can see there's some little imperfections in there that we've taken out, and I can just dump that in the trash. And what most of those are, we use kosher salt, and kosher salt is a bigger grain, and so that will catch the bigger pieces of salt, okay? Now you can look in there, we've got that chocolate all blending. I'm going to add the eggs. You don't want to dump them all in at once. Give the mixer a chance to mix it all in. So when you're looking at it before you add the eggs, it looks like kind of sandy. It has a sandy look. And once we add these eggs, it's going to have a really nice creamy chocolate look to it, okay? I'll turn it off right now. I'll take use the one that you scraped before with, because you got some chocolate in there and you just want to keep adding that in. Okay, perfect. Got my chocolate all going. Turn it back on. I have my dry ingredients ready to go. And once I look in there, I see all the eggs mixed in, then it's time to put this in. It's not going to take long at all. So right now, we're going to add it slowly. Make sure the mixer is not going full speed. What will happen if you put some flour in there, it might shoot it up in the air and get it all over the place. So you just want to do a little at a time. I'll turn it up a little bit. Yeah, if you feel like it's going too slow, you can add a little more speed to it, but not all the way up to this top speed, okay? Looking good there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab my recipe. I'm going to go through it, make sure I added everything, because believe it or not, I forget things. Okay, so I got butter and chocolate. I melted those together, went in there. with the sugar. We got that. The eggs went in there with the vanilla. I had the 3 dry ingredients, the flour, the salt, and the baking powder. Perfect. So we're looking really good. Got everything almost mixed. One more quick, and see right here. So when you add in the flour, some of the flour gets on top of the mixer. So you just want to make sure all that goes in. You're going to stir it around a bit. Make sure we get all the way to the bottom of the bowl. What happens is the bottom of the bowl, when you first start with the chocolate and the sugar, that will sometimes like harden down in the bottom, and so you just want to make sure you scrape it up. Okay, so this is perfect right now, but it's not perfect ready to scoop yet. What we do now is I'm going to take it out. I'm going to scrape off the chocolate that's left on here, and this is going to go in the refrigerator, really only for 10 minutes. And right now, if you look at it, it's got kind of a gooey look to it, right? So what we're going to do, it's going to sit in the refrigerator for about 10-15 minutes. And what happens is it hardens up enough that then we can scoop it. Then we're going to put it into some powdered sugar, going to coat it, and we'll put it in the oven. And when they cook, they look like an earthquake hit it. There's all these cracks, and it's really pretty cool. I'm going to run this to the refrigerator. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So the next thing we're going to do, we have 10 minutes we don't want to twiddle our thumbs, so we're going to work on something else. So I thought the best thing I can do is show you how to make another type of cookie that follows the exact same process. Everything's the same, but you get a completely different product, okay? So the same thing, what we're going to make, which is everybody's favorite cookie, chocolate chip cookies, okay? So the way we're going to do this, once again, what do we start with? We start with our protein, with our fat, which is going to be our butter, okay? So in this one, it calls for 1 cup of butter. Remember, I took a 1/4 cup out of that. So on this one, I'm going to cut this butter here, and that's going to be 1 cup. What I'll do is cut it into smaller pieces. It makes it a little easier for the mixer to blend it up. All right, get those in there. And next thing we're going to do, we're going to turn that on and let it start churning, and then we're going to add the sugars to it. You see I'm going to use this. This is one thing as a chef I love doing. I love combining things. There's a little bit of chocolate on there. There's chocolate in this recipe. That's not going to harm it, okay? I don't want to, as a chef, I don't want to be running all over the kitchen, so I know that there's some things that we can combine that aren't going to really change the end product too much, okay? I'm going to start that, and remember with this, I didn't mention it, but the butter is all room temperature. If you use cold butter, it's going to take a while. The machine's going to sound like it's like throwing things around. This is room temperature butter. It creams really easy. So when you're going to make cookies, make sure you pull out your butter and also your eggs like an hour early so they have a chance to warm up a bit. So we got that going, and now I can start adding our sugars. So we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of 2 kinds of sugar. We have brown sugar. So once again, like I said, I'm not going to get a 1/2 cup and a 1/4 cup. I'm just going to do 3/4. With brown sugar, you press it down. Make sure you get the right amount. I'll put that in there. And the same thing with white sugar, 3/4 of a cup. And you see now, you take a look at that and you say, oh, that butter's still stuck to the paddle. So you just stop it for a second. Just reach in there, pull that butter off of that paddle, turn it back on. It might take 2 or 3 tries. That'll happen a lot more if the butter's cold too, okay? If it's cold, it's really going to keep doing that, and it's going to get frustrating. Okay, so the next thing you want to do, remember, what are we going to do next? We're going to add our liquid ingredients. So I'll get my eggs ready. So we're calling for 2 eggs. So once again, I'm going to crack my eggs into a separate container so that the eggshells won't fall into the mixture. And we'll have to stop. We're going to do 1 teaspoon of vanilla, which I'll mix with the eggs. There we go. And I'll look through my recipe, think to myself, what else? Any more liquid ingredients? Nothing. We have vanilla extract, we have eggs. So once this creams up a bit more, we'll add the eggs to this. And I don't know if you can look in there and see, but you can see it has like a really sandy look to it, and that's what you want. You want it to get, really, it looks like wet sand at the beach, okay? And that's a good look. That's what we're wanting. We're going to scrape down there to the bottom. Turn it on a bit, get the other side. Just remember, down in the bottom of these these mixing bowls, that sugar can get caught, and so we don't want that, all right? So we have that. It's nice. It looks very nice. It looks to me like all the butter's blended nicely. Add the eggs a little bit at a time. 1, 2. Perfect. All right, so while that's going, now we're going to go and get our dry ingredients together. We'll do the same thing. We'll use our screen or our sieve, and we'll start with our flour. So it calls for 2 1/4 cups of flour. So if you remember how I did the flour, I do a big scoop, take some off the top, and you have 1 even cup. There's 1 cup. Our 2nd cup. And you can get a 1/4 cup container, or I'll do a 1/4 cup. Why not? There's a 1/4 cup. Scrape that off, okay? Those are all in there. We're done with our flour. Move it out of the way. The next thing, we're going to get our baking soda. So the first cookie we use baking powder, and the second one we're using baking soda. The reason being, with baking powder, you use that a lot more in cakes, and baking soda is almost always used in cookies. The reason we use it in the first cookie is we want them to really puff up. It's baking powder is really fast acting, so as soon as it touches the liquid and the heat, it's really going to rise up, and those ones we want to puff up. These ones we don't want to puff up so much, okay? So this, once it goes in, it rises slowly. I'm going to add the baking powder there, and we're going to have a little salt. I'm going to do about a 1/4 teaspoon. And once again, I'm going to do exactly what I did a few minutes ago. Shake this. You see sometimes there's some chunks of flour. So if that got into your mixture there, those chunks might stay there, and you'll have little bits of flour chunks in your cookie. You don't really want that. Okay, so I'm going to look at my recipe. I've got my flour, baking soda, salt, ready to go. My butter's in here, my sugar, my brown sugar, my vanilla, my eggs. We're doing good. We're doing really good. Okay, so one more scrape down, get everything off. Off they come. And I turn that on just to move it around. There we go. Get underneath. Now we'll make sure everything's mixed in nicely. And once again with the flour, you add it slowly. Remember, you add it too fast, it's going to come up in your face. Going to make a mess of you. All right, so little by little. And remember what that shaking did, that blended that powdered, that salt and the baking soda together. So now it's all really mixed in. If you didn't mix it in really well, you might risk getting like some baking soda a lot more in one cookie and not so much in another one, okay? So then what you want to do is just kind of pull it together, which it is doing right now, and then we're going to add our chocolate chips. So the recipe calls for 2 cups. You know what, that's always, to me, doesn't seem like enough. So that was 4 cups in there. I did 3 cups of chocolate chips, all right? You don't need to go too long with it. It's all blended nicely now. It's ready to go. Perfect. We pull that bowl down. We pull our paddle off. I'll move this to the back out of the way, and we'll take a look. How do these look? Delicious. You can always, at one point you always, I know there's raw egg in there and people worry about raw egg. I don't ever worry about it. I always take a little taste of it. I did once make a cake using salt instead of sugar by accident, and you want to avoid that. So that's not too much salt. That is perfect. These are ready to go. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that we can scoop these up. 2 easy ways, maybe 3 ways. Actually, is what I'll do. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my, you can either rub a little oil on there, some pan spray. I use what we call parchment paper. Parchment paper, when you use it, don't throw it away after one use. You can, especially if you're making cookies. But you can use this over and over. Once it starts to get brittle, then you throw it out. Just a cost-saving technique. Believe me, being in the restaurant business, you're always looking to save costs. Okay, so there's a couple ways. Usually in a restaurant, you're going to have nice ice cream scoops like this. So what you'll do, you'll just do even scoops. You want to keep a certain distance in between them. If they get too close, they'll spread out and they'll hit each other, okay? Or if you don't have one of these scoops, grab a couple of spoons, which I have right here. Whoops. Oh, excuse me. There we go. With one spoon, you'll scoop some out, and the other one, you'll push it off, okay? Just like that. Really simple. This is what I remember my sister Teresa doing, always doing this. Okay? My sister Teresa, who is probably the world's greatest baker. I always look forward to her baking for me, okay? So that's quick and easy. These will go into the oven for about 10 minutes, but if the recipe says 10 minutes, set your timer at 7 minutes so you can check them. You can spin the cookie sheet around. That cooks them really evenly, okay? Another way, and this is what we do a lot in the restaurant business, food service business. If you want to have fresh cookies, so suppose I have a catering tomorrow for 200 people. I don't want to cook the cookies today because they sit overnight. They get a little bit like, they get a little, they kind of lose their freshness. So what I'm going to do here, I've got a piece of plastic wrap put down, and I just do kind of a line. I'll do it with this. This might work better. There we go. All right, so we do this, and maybe you guys are figuring out what I'm going to do now. But what I'll do now, I'll just roll that a little bit, start punching it down all the way like that. With my hand, I just do a nice long pull, and this way you can always get the same size, okay? Roll it a bit. Pinch the ends, put this on the sheet pan, put it in the refrigerator. Tomorrow when you're ready to cut these for your party, you're just going to cut them. It's not going to be frozen. It's going to be like a nice, really easy to cut. If you try and cut it now, it's going to like go down like that, okay? But tomorrow, it's going to be refrigerated. It's going to be cold. You can just cut through really quickly. Probably use like a serrated knife blade to cut it. But that's a really simple way to do those. And that way, you can get cookies ready for hundreds of cookies, okay? And you don't have to worry about rushing that day of the party because you've got a lot of other things going on. Really quick, I'm going to grab that dough we made for the other cookies. Okay, so just an example. There's one I did yesterday. Hear that drop on the counter? Perfect. So you unravel it, and I'll show you how easy it is. Put it on a cutting board to do this. Cuts through so simple like that, okay? Just like that. You get all the same size. Put them on a cookie sheet, bake them. You're good to go, okay? So that's a very simple way. All right, the next thing, we'll finish up these, what do we call earthquake cookies. What we'll do, once again, we'll get that other half of the parchment paper, line it on there. One thing you got to be careful with the parchment paper, if there's that, like, see that's that little hanging over bit. I'm using what we call a convection oven where there's wind blowing in there. We have a fan blowing, and that will blow that paper around. So what often happens, if the paper's long enough, it will end up on top of a cookie. It will ruin the top of it. So you really, on a lot of these, you want to make sure you're not overdoing it with that paper, okay? And another thing, you want to make sure you get like a cookie in each corner so it keeps that from flipping up. All right, so now we have our chocolate, and as you can see, it really, remember how I showed you before, it was still pretty gooey. This one, nice. It's really, you can form little balls with it. I'm going to put them right into some powdered sugar, and we'll just roll that around, and then we'll just pull them out. Put them on the pan, like that. Okay, don't worry about getting the powdered sugar excess on the pan. It's not gonna it's not gonna cause any harm to cooking these. All right, so these ones also, if you were gonna make these, you could make this ahead of time. The day before, you could actually scoop them out, have them all ready to go. You wouldn't want to put them in the powdered sugar the day before, but then the day of, if you're having a party, a catering event or something, you just pull them out, roll them in in the powdered sugar. They're already sized out and everything. They're ready to go. Pop them in the oven. At that point, you would want to make sure they'd come back to room temperature. All right, so those are all in. The chocolate chip cookies are almost ready. But real quick, just so you can see, this is what we had. We made these yesterday. So these overnight, they kind of start to look a little funky, but see that earthquake look to them, that broken ground. And then these were the cookies we actually cut from the dough that was like that. And then these ones were the ones we scooped out. So you see the different sizes. We could have made these a roll if we wanted to, if we want them that size. It comes down to really what size you're looking for. If you're doing catering events, we usually do smaller cookies, especially if it's a buffet, because people come through and take multiple cookies. If you do big ones, if they take multiple big ones, you're going to run out. Smaller ones, you use less product. That alarm is so important. You never forget, oh, cameraman's hungry. Okay, even I've been in this business, 40 years? You always have to use a timer. I get over here, I start talking, somebody walks in the back door, totally forget what I'm doing. So that timer, boom, it reminds you. And you can always say to somebody, I gotta go, I got cookies ready, okay? It's a good out. Hey, I can start using that one. So that's it for today. The cookies are finishing up, but you saw how they look when they're done. Really easy recipes to follow. Same process for both of them. So remember that all cookies are going to be like that. All right, so keep cooking, and we'll see you on our next video.